every year in America. People buy hundreds of thousands of new cars, and almost all of those cars are really boring. Minivans, station wagons, economy cars with good gas mileage, practical cars. Why? Well, it might be because whenever a company goes out on a limb and makes a really awesome car, it seems to disappear immediately. Sure, there's something to be said for boring, but there's more to be said for fun. So why haven't more cool cars become popular? We're not sure, but here's a look at some of the awesome cars we're surprised never caught on. Pontiac Aztek. It seemed like a good idea at the time because it was. When the Pontiac Aztek debuted in 2001, it revolutionized the embryonic SUV market with innovations both useful, cargo nets, built-in beverage cooler, and weird, seat-mounted backpacks, as well as weirdly useful. The whole thing transformed into a camper, and the car was a hit with just about everyone who bought it, earning the highest customer satisfaction score of any vehicle in its class. Unfortunately, the Aztek had one problem: it was hideously ugly, so hardly anyone ever found out just how cool it really was. The good news is, people are catching on now, thanks in part to the car being showcased on Breaking Bad, but it's a decade too late. The Aztek ceased production in 2005. Amphibicar Model 770. It's a car that turns into a boat when you drive it into the water. Seriously, and this is not, like, some joke car from an episode of Archer or something. Beginning in 1961, the Amphibicar Model 770 was available to the general public, and stayed in production until 1968. Sure, the Amphibicar had some drawbacks, most notably the fact that it occasionally wasn't quite as watertight as it maybe should have been, and, yes, it only traveled a modest 7 miles per hour in the water. And then there's the flood of bad publicity, like when Time magazine stated it promised to revolutionize drowning. But still, it's a car that turns into a boat. Why didn't this catch on? Tucker 48. The Tucker 48 was a legendary piece of automotive engineering, developed by Preston Tucker for his nascent Tucker Car Corporation. In 1948, the aptly named Tucker 48 introduced innovations that we're still using today, including directional headlights, collapsible steering columns, roll bars, and a lockable parking brake. Unfortunately for America, the big automakers of the day conspired to crush Tucker, fearing competent competition. Buried by a smear campaign and spurious legal actions, the Tucker 48 was shut down before most people ever had a chance to buy one. Score another win for the bad guys. DeLorean DMC-12. The DeLorean DMC-12 is a case of being just a little bit too far ahead of your time, which, of course, is ironic given its main claim to fame is going back in time and the classic 1985 film Back to the Future. Unfortunately for car enthusiasts, the company had already ceased production of the DeLorean DMC-12 in 1983. If DeLorean had only been able to stick it out 2 more years, the massive popularity boost from the film might have saved the company. Who knows, we could all be driving gull-wing space cars right now if not for a quirk of timing. General Motors EV1. These days, electric cars like the Tesla and hybrids like the Prius are all the rage. As they are cheaper to operate and safer for the environment, it's a win-win for everybody. Everybody except, car companies who are in bed with big oil. That's the reason the General Motors EV1 never caught on. Introduced back in 1996, the EV1 was wildly popular with the few people who were able to lease them. However, notice the word lease. GM was desperately trying to convince the government that nobody wanted to buy the car, so they rigged the game by simply not allowing anyone to buy it. When the leases were up, GM seized the EV1s and smashed them all, literally destroying all evidence that there was any demand for them. A cynical travesty explored in the film Who Killed the Electric Car. Maybe if they had developed it instead, GM would be on top of the electric car industry now instead of relying on government bailouts to stay solvent.